Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Gold and silver, harnessing the power of intrinsic trust. Let's explore. Trust, or faith, which has more of a spiritual connotation to it, but there may be some ties there, but it's a very powerful thing. You know, many of us have trust or faith in things that we see around us every day. Whenever we stop at a traffic light, we trust that when it turns green, that no one is going to come from the other street, from the cross street, and run into us. And by and large, that mostly is true, although there has been some exceptions to that rule. But we assume the risk that more than likely the overwhelming opportunity that we are going to make it through that intersection on a green light holds true. And you know what? The track record of that fundamental law that most nations around the world come to respect and really appreciate those times does hold well. But you know what? For as long as we've been driving vehicles, and for as long as that we will continue to do so in such a manner form that we will see, we have trust in that system. And that has only been for just over, 130 years or so that's been happening, at least to some extent. Probably traffic laws are even younger than that. But regardless, these metals that you see before you here, gold and silver, have been utilized and have the same principle in terms of the law of exchange. And these metals have proven themselves through generations, through epochs, through various different nations, empires, and social structures. They have survived all that time. But still, to this very day, they hold as an example of what true value is. And so there is that trust, that fundamental trust that you have that is essentially ingrained because of their very being. They are what they are. And, with traffic lights, they are what they are. But the rules do apply. And so with gold and silver, we see the same thing. And I chose these two specific coins to illustrate that point. Because what you see here, this is from the Perth Mint in Australia. And this is noting the double dragons, which is sort of a symbol of China and Chinese culture. And gold, especially, has been utilized in China for generations upon generations. And various different structures and different empires and different political situations. Gold has proven to be valuable there, and it has also proven to be a store of wealth and silver as well around the world. Silver has been utilized and adored and seen as a thing of beauty and as value. I would even argue, even more so for silver, that silver has been more widely used as a transaction. In fact, the places in the world where gold was not used as transaction as much is only because it's been difficult to find silver in those areas, such as in the Middle East. But you go back through history, especially through the Viking Age, and through the kingdoms that have risen out in the what is now known as Great Britain, and out of the Roman Empire, silver was used a great amount. And obviously silver was utilized during the Roman Empire as well. And gold, a thing of beauty, a thing of status, a thing of wealth, a metal that has lasted for ages. And here we are in the year 2020. A lot has happened this year, but these two metals still hold true to this day. I would argue that if you ask somebody along the street about gold and silver, if they have value or worth, more than likely they would say yes. Now, we have seen some videos of some people that have done social experiments with these metals, and maybe they'll, trade an ounce of gold for a candy bar or what have you, or for the face value that's denominated on the coin. And so there are going to be a few that don't really understand the value, but it is ingrained in cultures around the world right now. And most every nation around the world understands that gold and silver have value. And maybe even they may come to a conclusion that gold and silver are money, or at least have been in the past, utilized as currency in the past. But, it is something that is pretty much ingrained to the point where, you go to sign up for a credit card, you're going to get the gold, you're going to become a gold member. Or a silver status, even things from different plans, that are labeled based off of the value of a particular plan. A silver plan is a pretty good plan, but the gold plan is even better. And so that is kind of the notion that we see, in our lexicon here, even in the West. But even more so, it's more ingrained in the culture and the psyche of those in Eastern countries or Middle Eastern countries. And so this is something that I think is quite telling. And I think it's a very powerful reason to accumulate both these metals because, it is not left really the sense among us of what is something to be considered a value. Now, in this day and age, in this information age, we think of currency, we think of things in terms of dollars and cents and the like. But this bill here, which is circulated over 60% of the world these days, there's something to be said for this note here. But the basis of this note, people look through history and they wonder what gives this its value. Well, it is a fiat designation. It is a fiat designation set by the United States of America, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States and its privately issued bank, whose chairman is appointed by the president, the Federal Reserve. But you know what? How long has this country been in existence? Over 240 years. But there's something, about this particular nation that we live in today, and the dollar and its influence around the whole world. 200 and some years is not a lot of time, because what happens? How long will it continue? Well, this is all we know as Americans, and even as most other nations around the world see the United States as the really the lone superpower to some extent. Although China, one could argue that they are an economic powerhouse and will more than likely take over being that dominant superpower in the future. But regardless, they over in the East, in nations like China and India, they value gold. They value silver, especially the Indians value silver. And so these metals themselves, because of what they are as money, they have transcended multiple different political situations and generations, epochs, and they've been money for a millennia, currency for a millennia, and that is something that is stands obviously the test of time. So when you think about the intrinsic value of these metals, think about the intrinsic trust that is out there among your peers. I'd be very curious to see what you know, or what you ask and share with some of your colleagues, friends, and family who may not understand, or you may not think they understand, but ask them one day. I pose that challenge to you. Ask some folks who aren't stackers or accumulators or understand the precious metals as well as you do. Ask them what they think about gold and silver. Ask them to define it without giving them any prompting. Let's see. You think you might be surprised. There's some intrinsic trust there, I believe. And I think it's something that is ingrained in us, even here in the West, for these Western nations, Western Europe, and the United States of America, Canada as well. I believe Mexicans get it more so, especially with silver. But regardless, I do believe there is that level, that foundation of intrinsic trust that's out there. So, what are your thoughts? Post them below. And if you do interact, post that challenge to you to ask a neighbor, ask a colleague, a friend, a family member on to define what they think gold and silver mean and define its value. And I'd be very curious. So there you have it, gold and silver, metals of intrinsic trust. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.